Hello, and welcome to the Deep Dive. I am your host, and I'm honestly really excited to get into today's topic.
And I am your resident expert. Really thrilled to be here and ready to dive right into this one.
Awesome. So I want you to picture a scenario for a second. You are driving home on a Tuesday evening,
Oh, boy.
right? It's been a long day. You're sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Just the worst.
Yeah, exactly. You're maybe drumming your fingers on the steering wheel, just waiting to get to your driveway. And from the back seat of the car, you hear the words that strike absolute terror into the heart of almost every parent.
I know exactly where this is
The
going.
kid looks at you and says, I want to quit.
Yep, there it is.
If you're like most people, your heart rate instantly spikes. Your mind immediately starts racing. You start thinking, oh no, if I let them quit piano or soccer or debate team, am I teaching them to give up when things get hard?
Which is such a common panic moment.
It is. Am I setting them up to be a quitter for the rest of their life?
Hmm?
We have this deeply, deeply ingrained societal belief that quitting is inherently a failure.
We really do. We attach this massive amount of moral weight to the idea of just sticking it out, regardless of the cost.
Right. Winners never quit, and quitters never win.
Exactly. We view persistence as this ultimate virtue and quitting as a fundamental character flaw. But when we actually look at how healthy development works, especially long-term human development, the reality is far more nuanced. Holding on to something just for the sake of not being labeled a quitter can sometimes do much, much more harm than good.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are reframing the entire concept of quitting.
A total paradigm shift.
We're looking at it not as a step backward, and certainly not as a failure, but as a highly strategic move toward long-term success and healthy identity development. Today we're pulling from a really fascinating excerpt from Season 2, Episode 6 of a show called ACTIQO, the Parenting Decision Podcast.
Which is an excellent source, by the way.
It really is. The specific segment we're focusing on is called the Alysa Liu story, redefining quitting as success.
Yeah.
And our goal today is to explore the counterintuitive benefits of stepping away from high-pressure situations, unpack the crucial shift from external to internal motivation, and ultimately give you a completely new framework for evaluating the activities in your life.
It is a remarkable case study because it takes this universal anxiety about giving up and completely flips it on its head.
Totally.
It uses a very high-profile example to show us the actual mechanics of human motivation.
Let's jump right into that core case study then. The story of American figure skater Alysa Liu. If you follow figure skating at all, you know her rise was nothing short of meteoric.
Absolutely meteoric.
She was this extraordinary talent at a very young age. We're talking about winning national titles early, executing technical elements that literally adults in the sport were struggling to achieve.
Just phenomenal natural ability.
Right, and she became one of the most talked about young skaters in the U.S. basically overnight. From the outside looking in, this was the absolute perfect success story.
The dream scenario.
It was the ultimate validation of early specialization. You know the narrative, you pick a lane when you're 5 years old, you grind, you focus, you sacrifice, and boom, you're a national champion. It looked like a straight, uninterrupted line to the very top.
What's fascinating here is the sharp contrast between that shiny external narrative and the internal reality.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Exactly. While the public saw this flawless trajectory of early specialization, behind the scenes, a totally different dynamic was unfolding. The pressure and the sheer intensity of elite training were building up enormously.
Which makes sense. I mean, the expectations must have been wild.
You have to imagine the weight of those expectations. When you're that talented and that young, you aren't just skating for yourself anymore.
No, of course not.
You're skating for your coaches, for your family, the national governing body, a massive audience of fans. The environment becomes a total pressure cooker. Behind closed doors, that level of intensity eventually became completely overwhelming.
And that leads to the pivot point that completely shocked the sports world. After years of intense competition, after living up to those massive expectations and achieving so much, Alysa Liu made a decision that left people stunned.
Completely speechless.
She chose to step away from competitive skating. You can almost hear the collective gasp from the public. People are thinking, why on earth would you walk away when you have so much talent?
Right, they're thinking, you've already done the hard part, you're already at the top.
It goes against every script we're handed about success.
It completely violates the winners never quit script we talked about earlier. To the outside world, she had the winning lottery ticket and decided to just leave it on the table. But that reaction actually reveals our own blind spots.
How so?
Well, we're so focused on the external markers of success, the medals, the titles, the public recognition.
The shiny objects.
Yes, the shiny objects.
Uh,
And we completely ignore the internal cost of maintaining that trajectory. We forget that the athlete inside that pressure cooker is a developing human being.
but let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
If we don't push kids or even ourselves through the uncomfortable moments, don't we risk raising a generation that just bails the second something requires actual elbow grease? Where is the line between protecting someone from burnout and just enabling them to give up when the novelty wears off?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's exactly why the panic sets in when a kid asks to quit. We are terrified of enabling laziness.
Exactly.
But there is a massive difference between quitting because a single practice was hard and stepping away because an environment has become fundamentally misaligned with a person's well-being.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. When you're in the middle of a high-stakes environment, your entire reality is distorted by it. You can't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes, stepping away is the literal only way to gain the perspective needed to figure out if you actually want to be in the forest at all.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this is where the story gets really instructive for you listening right now. Why was stepping away so crucial for her? Quitting, or taking this step back, allowed Alysa to hit the reset button.
The reset is everything.
It gave her the chance to experience life completely outside of that constant crushing pressure of elite competition. Imagine waking up and not having your entire day, your diet, your identity dictated by a single high-stakes pursuit.
That reset is psychologically vital. By stepping away, she was able to clear the noise.
Right.
A very specific psychological shift happens during this kind of break. She was able to rediscover what skating actually meant to her on a personal level, completely free from outside expectations. It's like turning down the volume on everyone else's voice so you can finally hear your own.
And here is the part of the story that completely changes the narrative. We didn't just leave Alysa Liu wandering in the wilderness. The reset actually worked.
It worked beautifully.
She returned to the ice a year later. But she didn't come back because her coaches demanded it or because the national team pressured her. She came back because she genuinely missed the feeling of gliding on the ice.
Yeah.
She went on to win a world championship medal, and observers noted she had a completely different, joyful demeanor out there. And then she gracefully retired on her own terms.
That return highlights the most critical lesson here, the shift in the nature of motivation.
Let's get into that.
When an athlete, or really anyone, returns to a pursuit after taking time away, the underlying engine driving them often changes. It shifts from external motivation to internal motivation.
Let's clearly define that difference because it feels central to this whole concept.
Yeah.
External motivation is when you're doing something because of outside factors.
Right.
It's the pressure to win, the fear of disappointing your parents or your coaches or chasing a scholarship.
Yeah. Precisely. You are performing to satisfy an external demand. Your fuel is essentially stress and obligation.
Sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. But when a person steps away, hits reset, and then makes the active choice to return, they are no longer doing it because they have to. They return because they genuinely want to.
The motivation comes from within.
Yes, they're doing it for the pure joy of the activity, for personal mastery, and for their own satisfaction.
And the result of that shift is huge.
Uh-huh.
When someone rediscovers that internal motivation, they don't just come back the same as they were.
No, not at all.
They return with a profound clarity, a sharper focus, and significantly stronger resilience. They know exactly why they're there.
Uh-huh.
And because that why is coming from inside them, it is incredibly hard to break.
That internal drive is effectively weatherproof.
I love that phrase, weatherproof.
It really is. When your motivation is external, a bad practice, a harsh critique, or a loss can completely devastate you because your entire sense of worth is tied up in that external validation.
Yep.
But when your motivation is internal, those setbacks are just data. They're just puzzles to solve on your own personal journey of mastery. That is where that massive increase in resilience comes from. It's a completely different way of operating.
So what does this all mean? We have been talking about elite figure skating, but most of us listening are not currently training for the Olympics, and neither are our kids.
True.
How does this apply to your everyday reality, especially when it comes to child and teen development?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the stakes are incredibly high for everyday kids and teenagers, even without national titles on the line.
Yeah.
For children and teenagers, identity is actively developing. They aren't fully formed adults with rigid preferences. They are in the process of learning who they are, what they genuinely enjoy, and how they actually want to spend their time.
It's a discovery phase.
Exactly. Their brains and their sense of self are highly plastic. They are essentially trying on different hats to see what fits.
But the environment we put them in often doesn't allow for that exploration. When activities become too closely tied to expectations or pressure.
And that pressure can be subtle.
Right. Whether it's pressure from a parent who desperately wants them to get a college scholarship, or just the subtle pressure of keeping up with the neighborhood peers.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. When that happens, a child's natural motivation will inevitably begin to fade. It starts to feel like a job.
And that obligation stifles identity development. If a child is only playing the piano because they are terrified of disappointing their parents, they aren't developing their own identity.
They're adopting an identity assigned to them.
Yes. Conversely, when kids feel genuine ownership over their pursuits, when they feel they have agency and choice, their motivation grows exponentially stronger. They participate because it aligns with who they are discovering themselves to be.
Which completely changes how we need to look at the idea of stepping away. We need to redefine the concept of the quit.
We do.
Instead of seeing it as a shameful giving up, we need to view it as a vital signal.
A signal is a perfect way to describe it. Think of it like a dashboard warning light in your car.
Okay, I like that analogy.
When that light comes on, it isn't a moral failure of the vehicle. It's information. It's telling you that something under the hood needs attention.
Right.
When a kid says, "I want to quit," it's a signal that can mean a few different things. It might simply mean they are exhausted and genuinely need a break.
Which is valid.
Very valid. It might mean they've outgrown the activity and need to explore completely different interests. Or, mirroring Alysa Liu's story, it might mean they need the physical and mental space to rediscover their own motivation without the crushing weight of expectation.
It's a reminder that progress is almost never a perfectly straight, linear path. We love the idea of the straight line. Start playing violin at age 5, practice every day, become a virtuoso by age 18.
It's a nice story.
It is, but human beings don't work like that. We zig, we zag, we pause, we back up, we change our minds.
The straight line narrative is a complete illusion. Human growth requires seasons of intense focus, but it also desperately requires seasons of dormancy, reflection, and redirection.
Yeah.
When we try to force a straight line onto a developing person, we often break the very person we are trying to develop.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we aren't just leaving you with a philosophical idea today. There is a highly practical solution for how to manage this in real time.
This is my favorite part.
It's a framework introduced in the source material called ACTIQO. And for those listening, we pronounce that ACTIQO. It's designed to help families evaluate activities, but it actively discourages using the traditional metrics.
It completely throws them out.
Right. It asks you to stop looking solely at performance or results. Stop looking at the scoreboard. Stop looking at the belt level. Stop looking at the trophies.
Which is incredibly hard to do. Performance metrics are easy to see. It's easy to see if a goal was scored or a math test was passed. But ACTIQO encourages parents to track 4 completely different, highly specific signals instead.
What are those 4 signals?
Those 4 signals are enjoyment, energy, time investment, and cost.
Let's really break those down because they seem simple on the surface, but they are profound when you start separating them. Let's start with the first 2, enjoyment and energy. Why are those 2 separate things?
It is crucial to separate enjoyment from energy. Let me give you an example. A kid might genuinely enjoy playing video games for 4 hours.
Sure.
They're smiling, they're having a blast with their friends online. That is high enjoyment. But when they turn the console off, are they energized?
Usually not.
Usually not. They might be irritable, lethargic, and completely drained. That is a high enjoyment, low energy activity.
That makes total sense.
Now, alternatively, a kid might go through a grueling track workout that they don't necessarily enjoy in the moment. It hurts, they're sweating, but afterward, they feel mentally invigorated, proud, and alive. That is positive energy.
That distinction is a game changer. If you're just asking, did you have fun? You're missing half the picture. Okay, the third signal is time investment. How much of their life and the family's life is this activity consuming? Is it crowding out time for unstructured play? Because unstructured play is where creativity happens. Is it
Yes.
crowding out rest or family dinners?
And that leads directly into the fourth signal, cost. We aren't just talking about the financial cost of cleats or piano tuning, though that is a real factor. We are talking about the opportunity cost.
Right. We're talking about spending every single Saturday morning sitting in a freezing rainstorm, sipping lukewarm coffee while your kid picks dandelions on the far side of the soccer field.
We've all been there.
What is the family missing out on because you are so heavily invested in this one specific area?
This raises an important question. Why track these specific metrics instead of just having a casual conversation about how things are going?
Why do we need the framework?
The answer lies in the data over time. If you apply the ACTIQO framework, let's say you track enjoyment, energy, time, and cost over a 6-week period for a travel baseball season, or a rigorous tutoring schedule. Families start to see very clear, undeniable patterns.
It takes the emotion out of it.
Yes. They move away from the day-to-day emotional reactions, the sudden panic of, I want to quit, and they start to see the macro trends.
You can clearly identify which activities are the true energizers, the ones that consistently build a child's confidence, make them light up, and bring positive momentum into their week.
Exactly.
And, crucially, you can identify the drainers, the activities that consistently create stress, apply unnecessary pressure, and slowly, week by week, drain their natural motivation until they're just going through the motions.
And once you have visibility into those patterns, the decision-making process completely transforms. It removes the guilt and the panic from the conversation.
We have the data.
Right. You aren't just guessing if they are being lazy or if they are genuinely burnt out. You have the actual signals. It shifts the parental role from being a taskmaster who enforces perseverance at all costs to an observer and a guide, helping a child navigate their own internal landscape.
It gives you permission to let go of the things that are draining your kid without feeling like you are failing them as a parent. You're actually succeeding by protecting their well-being and giving them the space to find their internal drive.
Exactly. You are teaching them how to evaluate their own life, which is a skill they will need long after they leave your house.
So let's pull all of this together. The core themes from this deep dive deeply challenge the way we've all been programmed to think about commitment and success.
They really do.
The biggest takeaway is that success is rarely a perfectly straight path. It is messy. True growth often includes pauses. It includes complete changes in direction. It includes moments of total rediscovery.
We have to normalize those pauses. We have to recognize that stepping away is an active, necessary part of the developmental cycle, not a break in it.
Most importantly, as we saw with the Alysa Liu story, sometimes the act of stepping away from something, the very thing society labels as quitting, is the exact mechanism that allows a person to hit reset, find their internal why, and come back stronger, more focused, and more resilient than ever before.
It is a powerful paradigm shift, and it leaves us with something really profound to consider, not just for the kids in our lives, but for ourselves.
Oh, I like where this is going.
If you were to take this framework, the ACTIQO metrics we just discussed, and apply it to your own adult life right now.
Scary thought.
Right. If you were to honestly track your own energy, your own enjoyment, your time investment, and the opportunity costs across all your adult commitments, what highly successful activity or what prestigious responsibility might you realize you actually need to step away from? What do you need to pause right now in order to rediscover your own internal motivation and come back stronger?
Wow. That is the exact question we all need to be asking ourselves this week. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning that straight line narrative of success. Keep looking for those real signals in your life, and we will catch you next time.